Well, good morning, everyone. Bore da pawb, Hannah Dwi. I'm Hannah. I'm from Green Squirrel. We are a small South Wales-based social enterprise helping more people make choices they feel good and excited about to help look after the people and places and planet that they love. And you're joining us this morning for our 60-minute home fix session. Thank you so much for being here, especially on a Monday morning. So what is the plan today? We are going to, excuse me, let's make sure I can see what you're seeing. Fantastic, there we go. The plan for today is for us to spend an hour together talking about the most impactful things that we can each do to make our homes greener, but also cheaper and more comfortable to live in. Now, before we go any further, oh, sorry, I should say, you will be getting these slides, so you'll get a copy of the slides. But also I'm going to mention a whole lot of tools, online resources, loads of useful stuff throughout today's session. And we put together a resource pack with everything in it. So if I mention something you think, oh, that looks good, I want to follow that up later, it will be in your resource pack, which my colleague, I believe, has sent over for sharing after the session. Please do make use of the chat. I will try and keep an eye on it as we go. I'm a Zoom girl rather than a Teams girl. So if you've said something and I appear to have missed it, please do shout and turn your mic on and let me know. And I also want to say that this session, like all of the work that we do, is about making choices that feel really good for us. We're all different. We all have different living situations, different homes. We all have different budgets, different levels of time and capacity. So this isn't about suggesting that we should all have the same choices to make going forward, but rather that it's a pick and mix approach, really, to make sure that there's something here that everybody feels that they can put into practice to save a bit of money, and as I say, make your home more comfortable at the same time. So before we do go any further, like I said, this session's part of what we call our 60-minute fix series, where we take a topic, an aspect of our daily lives, and we aim to boil down everything we need to know about that topic to help us pick out the most important and most meaningful, impactful things that we can do to protect our planet and protect our future. I would like to briefly explain why we take this approach, because I hope that this will help everyone get as much from the session as possible. So we at Green Squirrel, we've been working in climate engagement for around 15 years. Before that, my background was in outdoor learning and community nature engagement. So throughout my working life, I've seen directly that most people care really deeply about our natural world, about our environment, and most people are very worried about the damage being done to it, and what that means for us. Now, more and more research is piling up to back up this idea that most of us want a greener world to live in. An incredible 89% of people globally say they want their government to take more aggressive and urgent action on the climate and nature crisis. That means that those of us who care about this, we are the majority. The majority is calling for change, and that makes us really, really powerful. Now, we also know that the choices that we make day to day really do have a lot of real world impact. It's easy to feel like, oh, well, I'm just one person. What I do is just a drop in the ocean. It couldn't make a difference. But we consistently underestimate how important our choices are. There's a lot of power in our hands when it comes to reducing climate pollution. As individuals, we can, if we all pull in the same direction, directly achieve as much as 30% of the cuts to climate pollution that are needed. And on top of that, we can indirectly influence the remaining pollution cuts needed to come from governments and business. And the really key thing here is, because climate change and the nature crisis, it's not an all or nothing problem. Fixing 30% of the problem, making 30% of climate change go away, it is a really, really big deal. So we want change. That's what the research says. Globally, people want change. We have power over our future, but sometimes what our values tell us and what we intend to do doesn't always translate into taking action. Now, why is that? There's a number of factors that come together to create what's known as the intention action gap. That's the space between what we want to do, what we plan to do, what we have every intention of doing, and what we actually end up doing. And I think probably everyone's familiar with the intention action gap in their personal life in some way. So like New Year's resolutions are such a great example. Or like, I can decide I'm going to get up an hour early tomorrow morning and go for a run. And I want to do it. I know it's good for me. I plan to do it. I intend to do it. But it doesn't necessarily translate into me doing it. So I think being able to name this really common aspect of human behavior is helpful for a start. And in our work, when we talk to people about climate and nature, there are some key things that come up again and again that cause this gap between intention to do something and doing it. And one of these is lack of time and energy. So none of us have enough of them, do we? Ever. And making any sort of change in our life. So it could be something personal, like picking up a new exercise routine, could be something we want to do to be greener. Any habit change does ask for a little bit of time and energy. So those things are in short supply. And then a second blocker to taking action is sometimes getting our heads around all the information that's out there and knowing which of our choices genuinely make a difference. Because our time and energy is so limited, we don't want to put it into something that does just seem like a drop in the ocean. It doesn't feel worthwhile. And I think this is especially true when we think about our homes, because making changes at home, it has the potential to be disruptive, it has the potential to be expensive. We don't want to make the wrong choice and put time and energy and money into something that doesn't truly make a difference. And that can leave us feeling really stuck. We end up doing nothing. So that's where our approach today aims to help. We want to close that intention action gap for more people. We're going to respect your limited time and headspace by trying to kind of cut through the noise around greening our homes and focus on practical stuff that really counts. So at the end of our time together today, you're going to have a clear picture, I hope, of which aspects of our homes might be fueling the climate crisis and which changes we can make to create the biggest positive difference. So let's go. To help us understand just why homes are linked to climate pollution anyway, we're going to briefly look at where this pollution comes from and how it fits into the bigger picture of the fight against climate change. So how does a house create pollution? Well, climate pollution, planet warming gases, are produced when we directly burn fossil fuels in our homes, usually from gas or oil. So for example, when we switch on a gas heating system. Climate pollution is also produced when we use electricity from the grid, for example, when we switch on the kettle. And it's also produced when we turn on the tap or run the washing machine and use water. So those are the areas we're going to focus on today. We all have to do these things, okay? It's not our fault that our homes are not energy efficient. So this is absolutely not about any of us feeling guilty for having the heating on or flushing the loo. We obviously have to do those things, but there is loads we can do to reduce this pollution, and it will make our homes feel more comfy to be in, and it will make our bills smaller at the same time. And speaking of putting the heating on, this one is the real biggie here. So heating our homes contributes a massive 20% of the UK's total climate pollution. So if we think about everything that's going into that, that's manufacture, that's cars and transport, that's flying, that's agriculture, that's everything. 20% of that total picture is just from heating residential properties. It's huge. So the government's climate advisory body has said that the UK is just not going to meet its pollution targets without making every home energy efficient. This is such a key bit of the jigsaw. And people here in the UK really want greener homes to live in. 51% of Brits say they would buy solar panels if they could afford them. 70% of us would prefer to buy a home with solar panels already on the roof. And 24% of Brits say they'd get a heat pump if they could afford it. So we've got a situation where people do want to make their homes greener, but right now loads of us feel really trapped. The higher costs of energy, how long that's been going on for, the cost of living crisis, combined with the lack of clear information, to a certain extent misinformation about cleaner technologies, has left so many of us feeling stuck and not sure what to do. Because we're missing out on some major benefits here. It's not just the benefits to the planet. of course, there's lots of others, with cost saving for all of us being a major one. So if we take solar panels, for example, even in cloudy Wales, you'll save an average £537 a year on bills once they are installed. Electric vehicles, for example, cost less than half the price of petrol vehicles to run, and energy efficient appliances can save another £450 per year. And you're probably thinking, as I'm saying this, well, that's great, but how on earth does anyone supposed to afford these technologies? So we will look later at the key ways that we can get financial support. There's some really good financial support out there at the moment, so that we can potentially benefit from these money savings by getting this green technology. And as I say, there's loads of other benefits too. So less polluting technologies are better for our health, with lower rates of asthma, lower rates of respiratory illness, and actually better mental well-being and mental health in warmer homes. Children even perform better in school when homes are comfortably warm. So yeah, as I say, with all these benefits in mind, we will talk later today about how to choose and get your hands on some green tech and where to get the financial help to do that. But we are also going to talk a lot about low and no cost ideas that for reducing energy at home that anyone can put into practice right away, whether you own your home, whether you rent. And we're going to start with energy and heating. Mainly because it's responsible for this big chunk of climate pollution. This is an area we really want to prioritize. So first, we're going to explore a bit about how we as humans experience feeling warm enough, and then we'll look at how we can understand our homes a bit better. A really, really useful concept here is thermal comfort. So this is the personal and subjective measure of not just how hot or cold we literally are, or how hot or cold the room we're in is, but whether it feels good to us, whether we feel comfortable. A feeling of thermal comfort or thermal discomfort comes from these 7 different factors, all working together. So the first one is really straightforward. It's simply air temperature, the temperature of the room around us. The second factor is known as radiant heat. So any heat, any warmth that's reaching us from a warm object, like a plug-in heater or a radiator, like an electric blanket or a hot water bottle, or even from having your hands wrapped around a mug of tea. That's radiant heat. A lot of us, I definitely fall into this category. I find I can be comfortable as long as a particular bit of me is warm. So head, I don't have a lot of loft insulation up here. So head or feet maybe. If certain parts of our bodies are warm, we can feel comfortable even if the air temperature is lower. So radiant heat can be really important. We can, of course, also experience radiant cold. So think about waiting for a train and sitting on like a cold metal bench and the heat cold radiating from that. Or think about sitting in a chair next to a sort of a cold exterior wall and you can feel the cold coming off of it. So we can experience radiant cold too. And then the third factor in our thermal comfort is humidity, so how much water the air is holding on to. And the fourth is air movement, so drafts. These 2 factors together are really big reasons why we can still feel uncomfortable and not warm enough sometimes, even if the room we're in is technically warm enough. Very slight draft on your neck, for example, can make you feel as though your body is colder overall. And that can lead to us chucking the heating up a notch. So we've had 4 kind of environmental factors so far. The last 3 are all personal factors. Firstly, how well our clothing is insulating us. Do we have lots of layers on? Do they trap heat? What fabric are they made of? Secondly, our individual metabolism, or how our body turns food into heat. This is affected by so many factors. So our genetics, what we've eaten and drunk, how much sleep we've had, our age, and so many other things. Our mood as well can affect how warm or cold we feel. And that's one of these smaller things I've grouped together under feelings and surroundings. So little things that come together to create a sense of comfort or discomfort. Our emotional state, how tired we feel, the colours and layout of the space we're in, other factors that contribute to a sense of coziness. So for example, if somebody has one of those LED flickering candles in their space or just has the sound playing of a crackling fire, people perceive the overall space as being warmer. Their thermal comfort goes up, even though the actual temperature hasn't changed. So why am I telling you this? Because you might be thinking, well, it's common sense, chuck a jumper on. Ultimately, we want to save money. We want to reduce pollution by only using our heating as much as needed. And a lot of us can forget to take a more holistic approach to what makes us feel comfortable. For me, I run really, really cold. I drive my family wild. I'm one of those people that says, oh, feel how cold my hands are, like all the time. And I also sit at my desk and work long days without moving very much. So I don't want the heating on all day when I'm at home. So I build thermal comfort in other ways. I know I feel more comfortable with a radiant source of heat. For me, that evokes a sense of general warmth. So I have a heated foot warmer under my desk and a heated kind of pad thing on my desk, which I would recommend to any desk workers, by the way. And I try and have a hot drink a few times throughout the day. The collective energy use of running these heated doodads in the kettle is much, much lower than having the heating on. So that's a win. So, but I feel warm. I also have this kind of really rubbish superpower. I can sense any draft, and it doesn't matter how small it is. I know it's there, and I'll go around saying, "Oh, there's a draft." So where I sit, I got my back to the front door. I hang a big thick curtain to avoid feeling cold air on my neck. I also live in an old stone house that's got high humidity all the time. I run a dehumidifier overnight in the room where I work. And I've got an alarm set on my phone to get up for a few minutes each hour to move about a bit, generate some of my own heat. So, as I say, you might be looking at this and saying, oh, come on, Hannah, it's common sense. But it's important to note that what constitutes thermal comfort is really different for different people. It's a really personal thing. So as we move on now to look at understanding our home's energy use, having these 7 factors in mind, as we're going to take an imaginary walk around our homes, can often point us to small changes that make our homes feel a lot warmer without using more energy and potentially by using less. So how and where energy is getting used in our house at any given time can feel a bit murky. It can be difficult to get our heads around what's actually going on. It's a bit of a closed system sometimes. So we recommend 3 steps. The first one is to take a look at your energy performance certificate. I wonder, out of interest here, if how many people, whether you've had eyes on yours, whether you've never seen it, whether you've seen it at some point but can't remember. Quite a lot of the time, we only see these if we're buying or selling a house, and they just sort of sit there. And they're weird things. They're little snapshots of a particular moment in time for your house. And in many ways, they're a really dated system. They really need an overhaul. But they're easy to find, at least. You can find your home's EPC online. You don't need to own your home. You just need your postcode, so renters can check as well as homeowners. Here's my energy performance certificate for my house. This was issued before we bought the house. I think it was done in about 2020 or 2019. It might have been done before that, actually, I'm not sure. So for properties in England and Wales, the average energy rating is a D and the average energy score is 60. So my house looks pretty bad from this energy performance certificate, doesn't it? The rating here is then followed by a list of suggested steps that you could take to improve the rating, and they say how much it will boost your score. I think mine's got about 10 suggested steps on. Now, luckily, I've done quite a few things to improve energy efficiency in my house since I moved in, but this won't be reflected until I get a new EPC done. And this is one of the main problems with these. They're just a snapshot. They don't reflect improvements. So you can't log on and say, oh, hey, great, look, I got loft insulation, tick, and see your energy rating go up. They're static. There's 2 other major problems with them, which I really think are worth knowing about, because otherwise they can cause worry. So firstly, your energy efficiency rating on here isn't based on how much energy you use. It's actually based on how much energy cost at the time this rating was done. Gas remains in general relatively cheaper than electricity, so that's actually shifting and balancing out more now, but it was definitely cheaper when my EPC was done. So my rating was based on cost. What this means in practice is that homes with an old gas boiler might end up getting rated as more energy efficient than homes with an electric heat pump simply based on the financial cost of energy used, not taking other factors into account. Secondly, a lot of the time when these are done, no one comes to your house and looks. It's like desk-based research, or you answer some questions. Sometimes somebody comes out, but often a lot of things on these are based on assumptions, and that can lead to some sort of off-the-wall recommendations on them. So mine here says room and roof insulation. So that it thinks I have a loft room. I don't have a loft room. I can't insulate that room because it doesn't exist. My energy performance certificate also tells me to get a wind turbine. That's step 10, and I'm not going to get a wind turbine. And it tells me to get cavity insulation in my solid stone walls. So they're not always brilliant. So not perfect, but they are a really good starting point to just see what recommendations have been made for your home, which ones might make the biggest difference either now or in the future. The next step is to check out your gas and energy usage. I should say as well, the EPC, it doesn't tell you anything about how you use energy. It's just about the fabric of your house, the structure, the heating system. It doesn't comment at all on whether it's got no up-to-date information about how you use things. So this is the next step. Most energy suppliers now have got a decent app or a customer dashboard where you can explore your energy usage over different time periods. It kind of gets weirdly fascinating when you start trying to, oh, what's that spike? What was that dip? Trying to match it up with your own experience of living in your house. If you don't have access to a nice user-friendly app, so I'm with Octopus, so they've got a very, very good app. But if you don't, but you do have a smart meter, or you don't like your energy supplier's app, you could try an app like Hugo, which is free. It talks to your smart meter, and it pulls in all your data, presents it in a really easy to read fashion, helps you pick out sort of patterns and makes recommendations. A lot of these tools also allow for a live view, so updating every 30 seconds, which lets you do some kind of real-time detective work around the house, switching things off or switching things on to see how the power use changes, so you can identify what might be taking more power than you expected. And if you don't have a smart meter, it's a great next step. You don't have to have one. They're not going to be made compulsory or anything, but they are invaluable for getting a kind of a full picture of how your home uses energy, and also just making sure you're getting billed fairly as well. Or you can dig out old bills and pull the information out from there. I find energy bills a bit impenetrable and hard to read. I have included in your resource pack a guide to making sense of the different information they contain. But however you want to do this, however you decide to explore your usage data, what you're really looking for here is patterns of usage and opportunities to reduce it. So for example, you might go, oh, hang on a minute. A lot of power is still being used even when everyone's out at work. Why is that? It could be that you track it down and a lot of appliances and devices are being left on standby, because that uses a lot more than we realize. It could be that the timings on your heating system are a little bit off and the house is being heated unnecessarily. It could be that there's one or more sort of quite old appliance in your home. I know I've got a couple that are sort of just using a lot more energy than they should, and they might be kind of time coming up next on the list for being replaced. Your bill also will include what's called your tariff comparison rate. So this is the amount that that tariff that you're on would cost a typical average use customer. And then you can use these tariff comparison rates from different suppliers to compare tariffs and see if there could be a better one for you. So getting kind of familiar with your energy supplier and the data that they provide can be really, really useful. And then the third step is to take a look around your house and the things in it. So essentially an energy survey. Now you can pay for this, but they're really expensive. They're like somewhere between £600 and £900 usually. They're not cheap. So it's well worth looking to see if you're eligible for a free survey, because lots and lots of us are with the current schemes, which we'll see in a minute. And we can also learn an awful lot just from doing a DIY survey ourselves. So let's think about what we might want to look at on a DIY survey. The first thing really is air leaks from your house and drafts. And these can come from some really surprising places that we don't necessarily think about. So if your home's got a chimney, about 4% of the heat loss from your home is going up the chimney. If you've got an uninsulated roof, about 25% of your heat loss or more is going out through the roof. If you have got insulation, this is more like 14% or even lower. And then a kind of a 35% chunk is disappearing from all sorts of little places. So windows, doors, so gaps under doors, letterboxes, keyholes, even the amount of heat loss in those small spaces is significant. It's also places where pipes and services are coming in and out of our house, and whether there's a gap around where that pipe enters the wall. Cat flaps, the overflow hole in the sink, so loft hatches as well. So places that we don't necessarily look at might be leaking heat. And then the last sort of 10-15% of our home's heat loss disappears at floor level. So that could be drafty floorboards, that could be heat being soaked away by thin carpet on a cold floor. And that can actually be also, sometimes there's gaps behind skirting boards where drafts come in and heat is sucked away. So taking a physical walk around your house, room by room, and thinking about where heat might be getting lost is such a useful thing to do. And a handy way to pin down those drafts is to have an incense stick, like a joss stick, or a candle, just be careful, as you go around. And if you suspect somewhere there might be a draft, like under a door, round the loft hatch, use your incense stick smoke or the candle flame to see if you notice the draft and if you can identify them that way. And that's going to help pick up where you want to prioritize the draftiest places. And drafts are just such an important one to try and tackle because they don't just leak heat from our home, they create a perception of the house being colder than it is, which really leads us to whack the heating up to try and achieve that thermal comfort. So sticking with heating then, the next step in our survey is to get to know our heating system. So just pulling together some key information about our boiler or whatever it is we use to heat our house, turning the heating on and checking that radiators all around the house are getting fully hot. Are there any that seem a bit lukewarm and tepid that need some attention? And having a look at water tanks and pipes to look for opportunities to do things like cladding, put a jacket on a heat tank and so on to reduce heat loss. Then windows are up next, nice and simple really. Where we got single glazing, double glazing, do our windows have suitable ventilation? I've got really nice windows that the person I bought the house from put in, so that was done when I moved in. They're really nice, but they don't have trickle vents. So I have a really big issue with condensation. That increases the humidity in the house and that lowers the thermal comfort. So do we have a suitable amount of ventilation around the house? And where we've got curtains or blinds, are they working for us? We'll look a bit more at how we can make them work better for us shortly. Are they positioned correctly? Have we got windows without curtains and blinds, and could we add them? Then we're going to go up into the loft or into the attic or up in the roof. Is there insulation up there? If there is it still looking good? Has it kind of sunk? Has anything been put on top of it? Have the Christmas decoration boxes been dumped on top of the insulation to compress it so it's not working as well? And going around the house, have a knock on the walls. And if you have interior hollow walls, are there any that you would consider for cavity insulation as well, which can be a really effective way of keeping your house warmer? But first, you've got to know if you've got any walls that might be candidates. Then we're going to look at lighting. So at this point, lots and lots of us have, pretty much got energy efficient lights in our homes, but is there anywhere that's been forgotten that could have energy efficient bulb, or if it's like ceiling lights and so on, could they be replaced with more energy efficient ones? And is there anywhere in our homes that would benefit from a dimmer switch? And then the very last step is appliances, looking at our things like freezers, washing machine, oven, shower as well, if you've got an electric shower, power shower. How old are they? Can you figure out their energy rating, either from a sticker on the appliance or doing a bit of online research about the make and model? What kind of hob, what kind of shower have you got? One thing that's really worth mentioning about appliances is that the system for those kind of coloured energy ratings on them, that changed in 2021. And this was a good change because it made things better for us as consumers. So before the change, the system went and still goes up to AAA plus, how you say it, A plus plus plus. That was the top rating. And at that time, about 55% of appliances were rated the absolute top rating. So how's anyone supposed to make an informed decision and pick out, the most efficient one? So the system got changed. This has been good, but it's made it harder to compare older appliances with newer ones. So anything that would once have been classed an A, something you bought in 2020, for example, that had an A energy rating, is now an F. So although it seems low, F remains a good energy rating for what's currently available on the market, but it looks a lot lower. So don't panic if you start checking your appliances and they've all got sort of rock bottom ratings. It's because of this shift and how hard it is to compare appliances now. But going forward, it will make it easier for us to choose. So once we've done our wander around our house and we've looked at our bills, we've looked at our EPC, we're starting to build up a picture of our home and maybe filling in some gaps in our understanding of how it all works. So, for example, what are our bills looking like at the moment? How much money are we spending on energy? Where do we think our greatest energy losses might be coming from? So is it old appliances? Is it our heating system? Is it heat loss from windows and doors? So trying to understand that. And then asking short term, in each room, how can I improve my thermal comfort? Is it as simple as putting a thick rug on the floor or adding a thermal blind or getting a heated blanket or something like that? If something more is needed, those sort of medium-term plans might include thinking about which appliances or aspects of your heating system are probably going to need replacing next and starting to think, well, what do I want to replace it with that's more efficient? Then longer term, what opportunities are there, if any, for bigger projects that might make my home greener? More what would fall under the category of retrofit, as in really sort of updating the heating system or the fabric of the house. So just out of interest, please feel free to turn on your mic if you're happy to. While we were talking about that, I imagine that there's been some people doing kind of imaginary walks around their home in their mind. Is there anything that occurs to you right away where you're like, that's a really easy win for me? I could just make this change and my room would feel more comfortable.
I definitely have some drafts coming from like the chimney. I could probably
Right.
do something to stop that cold draft.
Oh, I got a great gadget to show you in a little bit then. Yeah, chimney drafts are significant. Yeah. Nas, did you have your hand?
Yeah, I've just recently bought some extra draft, what am I going to call it? Seal, like spongy seal
Like
stuff
this
to put
stuff.
around my front door.
Yeah,
And
lovely.
whilst I was looking like feeling for drafts, I noticed that there was so much draft coming through my letterbox. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna maybe try and seal inside there a little bit, see if I can
lovely.
reduce some of that draft as well. So yeah, I know it's really good to hear all these
Brilliant.
tips. Thank you.
These are good guys for letterboxes. I know they're not the most beautiful things, but a letterbox brush
Okay.
makes a big difference to drafts. It just means that cold air isn't getting in through there, and they're like about £4 or £5, so they're a nice
Okay,
cheap one.
great.
And you can get nicer looking ones than this. I've got a white plastic one here, but you can get nicer looking ones.
Lovely, thank you.
Did anybody else have their hand up? So I'm struggling to see. Speak now if you did. I don't see any more raised hands, I don't think. Lovely. Well, what we're going to look at next, now that we've got a nice picture built up of our home and what's going on there, is we're going to look at more of those easy wins. Especially with winter coming, we're going to focus on keeping warm over the coming seasons. And I've got 5 tips to share with you that I think are ones to prioritize. So the first thing to suggest, and you've probably heard this said, it's been quite a sort of talking point with the cost of living crisis, is the idea of heating the human and not the whole home. So if you're working from home or you're spending most of your time in a particular part of your room, the whole house doesn't need to be heated all the time. There are obviously benefits to using our heating. It reduces condensation, it keeps our homes healthy, but it doesn't need to be all the time. So how can we keep ourselves warm? Really ties into that thermal comfort, and it's all It's all common sense stuff, but it's one of those things like that. It's easy and obvious once you've thought of it, right? So even things like having warm porridge for breakfast, adding an extra layer, thicker socks, making time for a walk, all things that benefit us anyway. Having a local heat source that works for you. As I mentioned, I love my heated pad that I've got on the desk. It's just like a big flat heated pad, and it stops my mouse hand getting really cold. And we've talked about drafts as well. So heat the human rather than the whole home. Our next tip is to turn down the thermostat. And before everyone in their head goes, oh no, that sounds horrible, I'm going to be like the rats at the start of Muppet Christmas Carol. I promise that, just bear with me. Hopefully it won't sound so bad. Data from energy companies suggests that most of us don't use our thermostats very well. Most of us have them too high, and a lot of us find them really hard to leave them alone. I used to drive my dad up the wall when I was a kid. I was always turning the thermostat up. And that's because for a lot of us in our heads, the thermostat's like the accelerator in the car. When we want more heat, we turn it up, hoping it's going to heat the house up quicker. And this way, lots of us end up with our thermostat set too high. So what is too high? Where should we have it? So the NHS recommendation is somewhere between 18 and 21 degrees, with the higher end for where you've got people in the house who might be more vulnerable and need higher temperatures, but 18 or 19 degrees being a healthy temperature for most people. Making even really small changes to your thermostat temperature has this big knock-on effect on bills. So the recommendation is to start by turning your thermostat down, unless it's already at like 19. But if it's higher than that, knock it down 1 degree. Most people don't notice a 1 degree difference in their home, but it saves about 100. Oh, sorry, I've misreading my own slides here. So if you knock your thermostat down 1 degree, it saves £145 a year, which is amazing, right? That's a huge chunk off the energy bills without a massive difference in how warm and comfortable we feel. So that's a figure from the Energy Saving Trust. That's from this year's, based on this year's energy costs. It's well worth doing. You can also, if you don't have a thermostat and sort of programmable heatings, that's worth installing, can also save money, as can room by room thermostatic radiator valves. That's next on my list because it just lets you have a bit more granular control over how your house is heating up. So I hope that doesn't sound so bad, keeping it within that NHS recommended range and saving some money with 1 degree change. The next one sounds a little bit technical, but it's really simple, and that's reducing your boiler's flow temperature. I wonder if anyone here has had a go at this, or if this is sort of a new idea. Basically, the boiler's flow temperature is the temperature that the boiler heats the water to before the water gets sent out to the radiators. And then the water flows through the radiators and it cools down as it does, comes out into the heat is lost out into your room, which is what we want. And then the temperature of the water as it goes back to your boiler is called the return temperature. So when we reduce the flow temperature, we also reduce the return temperature. And boilers work better when the return temperature is low. When the boiler is working better, more efficiently, it saves us energy and money. But in most cases, it does not change how hot the radiators feel. It doesn't make a big difference. In general, the factory settings that boilers come into your home with are too high. The flow temperature is too high. It's normally set around 75 to 80 degrees. And for most boilers, 60 degrees is a really efficient place for it to operate. It's really easy to turn it down, and I've included in your resource pack some guidance on working out what kind of boiler you've got and then how to adjust your flow temperature. But I'd always recommend take a little snap of your current settings before you touch anything, and then you can just put it back if you need to. But this was, I think, a really easy win. And another easy win is curtains. So any room we're in, the air in that room is always trying to equalize itself. It doesn't want cold and hot areas. It's trying to mix. So when we've got cold air by a window, it's mixing with the warm air in the rest of the room. What we want to do is trap that cold air behind a nice pore conductor like a curtain, so the rest of the air in the room remains warmer. So this is really as simple as working with the sun. So keep your curtains shut in the morning until the sun is up. I mean, ideally, I'd say until the sun is on your house, but like today, there's no sun on my house. There's grey on my house. So Don't open the curtains too early, and shut them before it gets dark. So shut your curtains at dusk before the air by your window can really start to cool down. We want to hang our curtains as close to the window as possible, and thermal curtains and blinds make a really big difference, but they're not cheap. Sort of one of those like nearly fall off my chair if I look at the cost of things like thermal curtains. So one of my favorite kind of home hacks is these £3.50 IKEA fleece blankets, the Thorgan blanket. You can cut them to size, and you can literally, if you want, just safety pin them onto the backs of your curtains. You're not really going to see them, and leave them through the winter, and boom, you've got nice thermal curtains. So that's a really, really nice, easy way to boost your heat saving there. And then finally, insulate your loft. So roof and loft insulation, they offer the best return on investment of any house greening action, as in they pay themselves back quickest and save you the most money for what they cost. So although this is like a step up from some of the other winter tips, it still is, I think, a really easy win. So in terms of cost, insulation for kind of an average 3-bed house in 2025, it costs about £850 to get all the insulation you need. So I appreciate that is an upfront cost. It's not going to work for everybody. But if that would work with your budget, it's worth considering, because you can install it yourself if you don't mind being up in the loft, or you can get somebody in. It can be done in just a few hours or a day, depending on how fiddly your loft is. It then takes about 2.5 years, maybe a bit less, to pay back that cost. And then it's going to save you after that somewhere between £250 and £390 on your energy bill every year. And it's got a lifespan of 40 years. So it's going to save you over £13,500 on your energy bills before it reaches the end of its lifespan. So really, really worth doing if you can. If you're a renter, it's well worth asking your landlord, if the loft isn't insulated, to consider doing that. Okay, so we talked about some of those easy wins. We're going to think now about like the bigger future projects, or medium size to big future projects. Again, not because I think this is something everyone's going to be able to rush out and do, but so we can have it in mind and we feel a bit more informed when the time comes to make some sort of update or change to our homes. How can we reduce our energy use further beyond sort of, the really easy wins? Well, we had a mention already of draft proofing strips. I've got a pack here. These are brown ones to go with browns or doors and windows. You can get white as well, and I assume other colors. These are literally just thick foam sticky strips that go around doors, windows, loft houses, so that when they're closed, there's a good seal around them, and you're not getting drafts. These are very, very durable, and they last for years and years before they get compressed and need replacing. So a good one to consider. We've also talked a little bit about strips and brushes. I don't have a door strip with me today, but the sort of door version of these letterbox ones, the door brushes that go along the bottom as well, to create a seal that doesn't affect how the door opens, but stops drafts coming under doors. Really good for internal doors within the house. We could think about adding curtains over our doors, inside front doors and so on, and even in internal doors as well, if we want to keep a particular room warmer. And we could also think about rugs as a way to boost the insulation in a room fairly quickly and easily. Then we've got radiators. So some of you might have these already, or you might have heard of them, but you can install reflector panels behind your radiators. They're essentially shiny panels. I've got a few examples here. So this is a strip from a purpose-made one, just a strip. It comes in big panels, and you cut it to size, and then you slot it down behind your radiator, and you use sticky pads to hold it onto the wall. This one is shaped. You can sort of see the shape there. There we go. With these kind of steps, which the idea is that it guides warm air up and out from behind your radiator, so you can benefit from it in the room rather than the air soaking into the wall. I think it cost me about £80 to do every single radiator in my house. I share my house with another family, so we've got kind of twice as many radiators and rooms as everyone else. So it wouldn't be that much for the average 3-bed home. And you just literally, cut it with scissors, sticky fix it behind it. It took me like an hour or something to do. and they work really well. I've had those for about 4 years. A cheaper option this is a paper version that you can buy. I don't think this one is as effective, to be honest. So if you're going to go for a cheaper version, I would try and go for a completely free version and see if you can stash this kind of packaging material. I don't know if anybody gets anything that comes in like a chilled bag, or anyone in your family gets kind of Hello Fresh or anything like that. If you don't want to pay for the proper ones, putting these behind your radiator are pretty effective. And you cut them to size so you don't see them. So radiator reflector panels are great. We talked a bit about jackets for water tanks and pipe cladding to prevent heat loss, which is really useful. And then somebody mentioned chimneys. So this is my favorite thing to show people. This thing is called a chimney sheep, excuse me, because it's made from wool. It's made from sort of waste wool, so it doesn't go to waste. So it's a thick wool pad, has a slight whiff of sheep, with a plastic handle. And you basically, if you don't use your chimney, so if it's just, you know, decorative hearth, you haven't got anything in there, this goes up the chimney and creates a seal so that the warm air can't be pulled up. And then you've got this sort of dangly bit down below. This is designed to remind you that it's there in case you ever light a fire under it. So you can easily pull it out and remove it again. I think they're about £18, these guys. I had a chimney with just an empty hearth in my previous home. This made an instant difference. I couldn't believe how effective it was. So chimney insulation or chimney draft excluder is really good. We've chatted about upgrading appliances when achievable. If you're replacing your carpet, it might be time to go for a thicker underlay. And then we've also got the sort of slightly bigger steps like cavity wall insulation and replacing doors and windows, which are less DIY jobs and obviously more finding a contractor. And there is some guidance in your resource pack on finding contractors for things like that. So the final step in our kind of responding to the results of our energy survey is to electrify. We've talked about the easy wins and the medium-term jobs, but this is the last part of the puzzle when it comes to reducing climate pollution at home. Essentially, what we want to do here is look for anywhere in our home that we currently burn fossil fuels directly. So a gas boiler, a gas hob, a gas oven, or a petrol car. I appreciate the car's a little bit tangential here because we're talking about homes, but it might link into your home energy system if you were getting solar. Can we take these places where we're directly burning fossil fuels, and can we electrify them when it comes time to replace those things? Can my next one be electric? This is such a climate power action, but as you probably know, these things don't come cheap. So we're gonna first of all now just have a quick look at the two big players, so heat pumps and solar panels, and then importantly, we're going to look at how we can finance this through government support that's currently available. So I think heat pumps are magical. I can't wait to get a heat pump. I think it's not overdoing it to say that they are one of the most powerful weapons humans have come up with in the fight against climate change. They're so boring looking, and they're quite boring to talk about a lot of the time, but they're so effective and powerful. Eventually, ultimately, every single home pretty much that's suitable for one in England and Wales is going to end up needing one. They are the future of heating our homes. But what are they and how do they work? So there's really three main types. There's ones that pull heat from the air. Those are by far the most common, an air source heat pump. Then there's those that pull heat from the ground, a bit less common because you need a big bit of ground to sort of dig in pipes. So that's a ground source. And then there's water source heat pumps, a bit less common still for homes because you need a pond or some sort of water body. So the air source are really what most of us are thinking about. So whatever kind you've got, what they do is they use refrigerants to concentrate heat drawn from the air or ground or water. They concentrate that heat, they pump it into your home. They run on electricity. They are a much, much more efficient way to heat a house than any other system. They are widely seen as the best way of cutting climate pollution from home heating. So fantastic technology that's improving all the time. What does that mean in practice? Well, they're generally a sort of a 1 meter by 1 meter box, slightly less than a meter deep. They live outside your property, on a wall, down at ground level. And then inside you have a heat pump unit, which is about the size of a small gas boiler, and you have your hot water cylinder. They make about the same level of noise as a fridge, and they're outside, so that they're really, really quiet. They're not going to affect you in the house. And there's been a lot of weird, like, misinformation about heat pumps over the last few years. So here's 4 things I think everybody should know about them. The first thing is that if you ask anyone who already has a heat pump what they think about it, 9 times out of 10, they will tell you how much more comfortable their home is now. And that's because heat pumps are really effective at keeping your home at a consistent and comfortable temperature. That's not just in winter. In summer, they actually cool your home as well. They work in reverse. So people do rave about their heat pumps and how good their home feels to be in. Also, lots of us think that our home isn't suitable for a heat pump, that we need loads of extra major work. But actually, about 2/3 of homes in the UK could just have one fitted without any major retrofitting needed. And then finally, most of us know that they're quite expensive. If we have heard of them, that's the thing that people tend to know, is they're quite expensive. They cost about £10,000. But the government will cover £7,500 of the cost. There is a grant scheme out there that's running until the end of 2027 to make this more affordable. Before we leave heat pumps, I wanted to mention this really good scheme called the Visit a Heat Pump scheme. So if you'd like to see one in action and you'd like to hear from a real person who has installed one and is living with one, you can pop your postcode in here and find someone near you who has put their name down to welcome people to their home and chat about their heat pump experience. It's so valuable with any new bit of technology like this, isn't it, to just sort of see it in action. And I think it tells you how passionate people are about their heat pump, that they're up for having randoms come to their house to look at the heat pump. So well worth a go if you're interested. Okay, we met the magical heat pump, about the super solar panels. They're a lot more common than heat pumps now, a lot more mainstream, but they're still often misunderstood. Does anybody here have solar? You can pop your hand up, or you can tell me. Any solar subscribers yet? Don't see any hands. No. Well, like heat pumps. Oh, we got one. Who's that? I can't see. My team's just making it difficult. Oh, it's Susan. Yeah, you've got solar, Susan. I think like heat pumps, they're still quite misunderstood and people are quite suspicious of them. There's been a lot of misinformation, and I think it's not generally known how much the technology has progressed in recent years. Yes, I can see Susan nodding as well. Almost every week now, there's like a news story with some exciting solar innovation, and it takes a while to trickle down to us as sort of domestic consumers, but there's so much potential for them. They still work at their absolute best on south-facing roofs, but they still work really well for homes with roofs that face east or west. So loads of people rule them out because they don't have a south-facing roof, but it's still worth having somebody come have a look and assess your roof. The only other barriers really are, have you got something significantly shading your roof, or is your roof in need of some structural work, basically, that might make it hard to put the panels on until that's done. Like heat pumps, they aren't cheap to install. The average cost, or the cost for the average home, is between £7,500 and £8,000. Obviously, it can go up depending on how big your system is and so on. And this is where the interest-free Green Homes Wales grant can help. We'll just look at that in a moment. Solar panels in general take about 14 years to pay themselves back. This can vary really wildly. But the average 3-bedroom house saves about £537 a year. It tends to halve people's bills or more. And then you can make a further about £160 a year by selling excess energy back to the grid. And solar panels have a lifespan now of about 25 years, after which you'll have made a profit of about £5,500 selling power back to the grid, in addition to your energy bill savings. Solar really, really comes into its own when it's connected up to batteries or a hot water tank or an electric car, or all three. So the way we've set things up in my home is we have something called a Harvey, which is a little device that sort of sits like a spider in the middle of a web, and it directs where solar power goes. So we have batteries, and we're able to fill them up on the cheap rate on our tariff at night, which is great, another money saving. We have an EV, which also kind of acts as a battery because excess solar power goes into there and is stored there. If there's power left over, it heats our water instead of using the gas. And then anything else gets sold back to the grid. And we're on a tariff that maximizes how much we can get from that. So yeah, they're fantastic on their own. They're also great when they're combined with kind of another element. So with our last sort of 5 minutes, I wanted to chat about what kind of financial help is out there for these sorts of bigger projects. There's 4 main schemes that it's worth being aware of at the moment. This does change. It's always my hope that new government grants and support will come along for retrofitting and in greening our homes. But here's what we got right now. So first of all, there's Nest. Nest is a service that gives you very good, impartial home energy advice. They can answer a wide range of questions and think about a wide variety of areas with your home. And you start off by either giving them a call or you submit a form online for a call back. They will assess whether you are eligible for other grants and direct you to how to apply to those. Or they may decide that there are things that can be offered to you based on your situation, and they'll talk you through what you can get. So it's a really good place to start. The advisors are really good with Nest, so you just give them a call. The next one is Green Homes Wales. This scheme is really good. I think it deserves to be better known. I know a few people now have used it and have had a good experience. So initially what you get is fully funded access to a surveyor, essentially, who creates a detailed home assessment for you. They provide energy efficiency recommendations and recommendations of how you can electrify that are tailored to you and your home, which is great. And then if you decide to go ahead with any of those recommendations, this scheme provides interest-free loans from anything from £1,000 up to £25,000. And the repayment period is, you can choose it, but you can have up to 10 years interest-free on this loan. So it's a really great opportunity to sort of replace something that's coming to the end of its life now. And actually for really large projects, they'll even extend it beyond a 10-year repayment period. There's a 6 months upfront repayment holiday while your new energy efficiency measures kind of kick in and start delivering results, and it's not means tested. The only thing to know about this one, I suppose, is you've got to be the homeowner. So landlords can't apply for this one. The home has to be your primary residence, and it's not available for new builds because they have to adhere to a certain level of energy efficiency, technically, anyway. And then we've got the boiler upgrade scheme, which is so like a sexy name. It's just so exciting. Classic government grant scheme. This is going to be open until the end of 2027. So you've got a couple more years to apply for this. And this is the one that gets you £7,500 off the cost of an air source heat pump or a ground source heat pump. It also provides up to £5,000 off a biomass boiler as well. Again, new builds aren't eligible for this, but pretty much all other homes are. They've made a few changes to this scheme. So it used to be that you had to have certain things off your EPC done in order to apply for this. Like if your EPC said you had to have cavity wall insulation, you had to have that done before you could apply, but they've taken that off now, which is brilliant. I'm so pleased. And there's a big drive, I think not a brilliantly effective one, but there's a big drive to try and make more people aware of this because less than 20% of homeowners have heard of this one. Also, if you've had a grant through Green Homes Wales to, like, for example, a friend of mine just got his doors and windows completely replaced through the Green Homes Wales scheme, you can then still go ahead and apply for this to then get a heat pump, for example. It doesn't exclude you if you've had one. Also, landlords can apply for this one. So if you have a landlord or you are a landlord, worth thinking about. And then the last one to mention is Eco4. So if you either own or rent, and you have electric storage heaters and you receive income related benefits or just are on a tight budget, you might be able to apply for this one. So they'll do an eligibility check on you. And what this one does, it provides grants rather than loans for loft floor and cavity wall insulation and a couple of other things as well. If you're not sure which of these is best for you, have a chat to Nest because they can talk about your circumstances and point you in the right direction. And then very, very finally, not all electricity tariffs are equivalent when it comes to the climate pollution that they're responsible for. So if you are responsible for choosing your energy supplier and you have the option to change, it might be something you want to look at. What I mean when I say that they're not all equivalently green, basically, no matter what supplier you're with or what tariff you're on, whether you're on a green tariff or not, when you switch on your kettle or your TV or whatever, the energy to power it all comes from the national grid, which mixes fossil fuels, renewables, and nuclear sources all together. So when we're on a green supplier, it's not like the connection to our house is coming straight from a wind turbine. It's all coming from this national grid mix, regardless of which company we pay. This is really important, I think, because some companies market their energy tariffs as green or 100% renewable. That gives us a false impression that we've got fully green energy coming into our homes. And Utilita did a study a couple of years ago that found that quite a lot of customers on renewable tariffs felt less guilty about wasting energy. So because they were on a green tariff, they would not worry so much about switching things off or not having the heating on. So what does it actually mean to find a 100% renewable tariff? Well, basically, your supplier should be adding sufficient renewable energy into the national grid to match what you are taking out. Not just some renewable energy, but enough to cover the energy use of all of its customers. And ideally, that would be renewable energy that's come either from its own power generation. So some companies like Ecotricity generate their own green power, or that's been purchased directly from renewable generating companies. It's not just been bought sort of green energy credits. There's a couple of other things we can look for if we're looking for a greener energy supplier. So it's great to choose a company that is actively building new sources of green energy. And it's really good to look for a company that's actively helping their customers reduce their energy use through either that's tools and apps, things like saving hours, or help to get heat pumps and things like that. The ratings here are based on Ethical Consumers Research for 2025. So 100 Green, which is not a well-known company, comes up top together with Ecotricity. And then really good companies to go for, not quite up in this top level, are Good Energy, Octopus, Your Co-op, which I believe buys its energy from Octopus anyway, Fuse, and OVO. Although I will say with OVO that they've got an increasingly bad reputation for customer service. I'm not with them, I'm with Octopus, so I don't know if you are with OVO, if you've had a particular experience with them either way. But yeah, if you have control over your electricity supply, then it's worth considering making a shift. And that brings us to the end of our time together. Occasionally in this session, we have time to talk about water saving too, but it's a tricky one to fit in. So instead, I've popped some resources into your resource pack on things like how to do greener laundry, where in your home water is most getting used, even a playlist of short shower songs to help you hop out of the shower in a timely fashion. So you can take a look there. To just recap, the key things that we can do as ordinary people living in less than perfect ordinary homes is, first of all, understand our energy use as much as we can, and then see what we can do to reduce it, thinking about short-term thermal comfort as well as medium and longer-term actions that we might want to take. And if we can, if it fits with our plans, if it fits with our budget and everything else, electrify next time it comes time to update an appliance, a car, or a heating system. And as you'll see in your pack, tackle bathroom and laundry water usage. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come and find out about this morning. I really, really hope there's been something in this pick and mix here that you think, yes, I think that might work for me and my house. I'm really happy to stick about for a few minutes if anybody wants to chat or share anything else. But otherwise, do keep in touch. We love hearing about when people have changed things or tried things as a result of these workshops. You can find us on social media, or you can contact us through our website, which is greensquirrel.co.uk. Otherwise, lovely to see you all today. Good luck on your home energy adventures, and perhaps see you again in the future.